everyone, Jess here, and today I'm joined with Karen Chan, Group Chief Commercial Officer at AirAsia. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
It's a pleasure. So as you navigate the transition from recovery to growth, what will be your top priorities for the coming year?
We have a lot. And when we actually look at what are the main levers for us to go from recovery to growth, there are basically two main levers: incremental revenue, and then how do we actually become cost efficient? And we have four different initiatives. So maybe I can first touch on the incremental revenue piece first. We will continue to expand into new routes, organic growth. We are now diversifying as well. We are actually looking beyond ASEAN. We are already the number one carrier in ASEAN by pax flow. Now we are looking at how can we actually bring ASEAN to the world and bringing the world closer to ASEAN. So one of the exciting launch inauguration that we have in March will be flying to Kazakhstan. So this is our first foray into Central Asia. And we're very much looking forward to further expansion into CIS. We are also expanding into Middle East. We are already flying Jeddah, and that will be our first stop, and there will be further expansion. So that's the first part. The other part in terms of incremental revenue is about fifth freedom. So as a low-cost carrier, we have always been focused on point-to-point. Now we are looking at what are the connectivity that makes sense on popular routes, whereby we can actually go and take passengers from point A to point B and now to point C. So we'll be announcing very soon also that by Q2, we'll be using Taiwan as a stop for passengers to be able to go and fly into 4 different cities in Japan. So fifth freedom is another lever on organic growth. And the third one, basically, it's ancillary. As a low-cost carrier, we charge for everything. And we are actually seeing huge tick-up on ancillary post-COVID. Of course, customers who haven't been flying a lot, now the revenge travel, in the past 2 years, sees that they need to buy bigger baggages, to carry all the souvenirs and the shopping bag. That's one. And more importantly, insurance. Whilst a lot of people are saying that now post-COVID, will people still buy travel insurance? They may not be as concerned about the COVID portion of the travel insurance, but they want to make sure that are they covered for flight disruption delay? Are they actually covered for, untimed cancellation? So we actually see that the attach rate for ancillary continue to increase, and this is another area that we want to drive. So that's on the increasing the revenue part. In terms of cost optimization, AirAsia has always been known as the carrier that actually has the most efficient fleet utilization. We basically run, because we focus on short haul below 4 hours a lot. We are looking at basically 12 to 14 hours of fleet utilization. We are also modernizing our fleet. So we are the first airline to actually take up the A321neo in 2021 for both Thailand AirAsia and Malaysia AirAsia. And as a result of having fleet that has longer stage lane that can actually take more passenger, but then reduce the fuel usage by about 600 liters per flight, we actually have a huge carbon intensity reduction of 20%. So there's a lot of things that we are actually doing and making sure that, we continue to go and grow.
Absolutely. Thank you for expanding on those points. It's always great to hear about your focus on new markets, because I know there's been a lot of buzz since Tony Flanders and the sort of debuting information on that. So that was great to hear about the opportunities you're capitalizing on, but what about the challenges? What sort of challenges are you facing as a low-cost carrier in the current landscape, and how are you actively addressing these?
I guess as an airline, we are used to having both headwinds and tailwinds. In terms of some of the challenges that we are facing, we also see that as an opportunity. Maybe I can first start talking about macro challenges and then industrial challenges. Malaysian ringgit is at its weakest historic low, which means that if we need to go and settle our bills in USD, there's actually an increased cost of settlements, increased cost of operation. So that's actually the bad side of, a weak currency. But because now today we are in Singapore, it's actually cheaper for a Singaporean to fly to Penang, have a meal and a side of durian than actually eating out in Clarke Quay. So I guess the opportunity that is actually given Malaysia, because of the currency weakness, is that we are actually attracting a lot more inbound travelers. So that's one challenge, but I also see that as an opportunity. The other piece is basically the geopolitical tension has led to fuel volatility. And we are seeing huge swings, upswings and downswings in terms of fuel. And Also because of the geopolitical tension, we are also seeing disruption in the supply chain, which means that when we need to go and do MRO for our engine, there are spare parts that might be stuck for, over, extended period of time. And then the fleet return is also being impacted. The third piece that we also see is that as we look at the recovery of flying, some of the more popular routes, the airports are absolutely congested. And because manpower has not actually come back, the cost of ground handling in certain countries are now basically 3 times to 4 times than before COVID. So once again, it also increased the cost of operation. Now, how is AirAsia tackling this? I mean, we are very proud to say that we have actually won the 14th consecutive time as the best low-cost carrier in the world, awarded by Skytrax. And the reason why we can actually be a low-fare carrier is because we have very, very stringent measures on low cost. So one of the example in terms of saving on fuel, we have been practicing this policy of one engine taxi departure. So instead of having 2 engines on at the same time, when you're waiting for the taxi and when you're waiting to take off, we actually have only one engine. So that actually not only is sustainable, it's also, reduce our cost. The other piece that we also look at is how do we make sure intentionally pairing the right fleet type with the right characteristic of the route. So take, for instance, in congested airport whereby we know that we will not be able to get new slots, we are now upgauging. From basically a narrow body, we might upgauge it to an A321 or maybe even a wide body. Conversely, for routes whereby pre-pandemic, it's very much group focused. So big groups, coming from China. Now, as a result of pandemic, it becomes a lot more FIT individual travelers focused. We will down gauge it from a wide body A330 into basically an A320. So all these efforts that we are taking to basically map, to make sure that we are operating in the most efficient way is one way to tackle some of the issues that we are facing.
Fantastic. It's so interesting to hear the sort of flip side of the coin where you're taking a challenge and turning it into an opportunity as this sort of, I guess, the mark of a great airline. So at the event, you've also been speaking about inclusivity and innovation. How does AirAsia foster inclusivity and what tangible benefits do you see for those?
In the same panel, I was also saying before DEI is even a term, right? We have to go back to culture. And AirAsia culture has always been about inclusivity and also diversity. So let me share with you just a very simple signal. When our co-founders, Tan Sri, Tony Fernandez, and also Dr. Kamarudin, when they started the airline, it was very intentional that they do not call employees as employees. They call them all-stars, which means that everybody is a rock star, especially the frontliners. Because without the frontliners, us sitting in the office, we are not basically the face of AirAsia. They are ambassadors. And I think this empowerment that we are all equal and that no function is superior to another, that we are all equally important, actually underpins the output, which is diversity and inclusion. And I was also sharing in the panel that diversity is not just about gender. It is also about age. It is also about capability. And I actually came from a non-AirAsia, non-airline background. But Tony actually took me in because he actually wants to have the diversity of talents. Whether you are male or female is not as important as what you can actually value add and the impact that you can actually create. So one of the principles of our culture that, we live by is something called Dare to Dream. We have many, many different statements, but the first one is Dare to Dream. And that actually started with, our founder. Tony came from the music industry, but, somehow he wanted to become, an airline CEO, and he decided to go and purchase 2 aircraft, Boeing, at $1 million, and the rest is history. So he always challenges us, think outside the box. Do not actually let what you are doing now restrict what you can be. It's all about the possibility. So one example, which is not even about gender, is that we have one ramp boy. So he basically helps load the baggage onto the conveyor belt. His dream was to become a pilot. And he failed the test 4 times. And just in January, he passed the test. And now he's going to be a first officer. And I think for me, this is more about diversity and inclusion. It's not just about the gender piece. And there's another example whereby, we always have town hall. And one of the town hall, there was a female pilot. And, we are proud to say that AirAsia actually has about 8% of our pilots being female, which on a global average is only 4%. So, we believe in it. And so this female pilot was actually talking about her journey. And then all of a sudden, she looked to the audience and I say, and I want to thank one person, and that is my father. Her father was also a pilot for AirAsia for over 15 years. And she said, my father always tell me girls can do anything. And that's where we are now. So I think, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, storytelling and, telling real stories about what our all-stars are going through is the best way to talk about and to really go and live it. Yeah.
And it's so useful to hear these examples of it in action. And by the sounds of it, it's not so much necessarily a culture change rather than it being built into the foundations of the company in the first place.
Absolutely. And it's actually the amplification. Now we talk about DEI. And to me, other than basically just real stories, what is a system? How do you, other than culture, how do we actually sustain DEI? We need to go and have the right system. So our remunerations committee is very, very clear. There's no disparity in terms of pay by gender. We pay by performance, whatever your color, your creed, your beliefs are. And I think this is something that is, that is also something that's been top down. And then we have to go and amplify that.
And finally now, how do you think events like this help to spark innovation in the industry?
What I love, and I haven't been to the Aviation Festival for quite a few years now, it's my first time after COVID. What I actually see that's quite different is that the stores and the vendors that are actually at display are very, very much focused on technology. Versus in the past, it might be more about services. And now this time it's all about technology. It's about integration. It's about bringing the world, bringing different airlines together through all these integrative platforms. And I think this is the right trend. To be a successful airline, we need to think about technology. It is not just about technology for purchase. It's about the whole value chain. How can we actually have predictive engineering? How can we actually have retargeting for consumers so that we are not sending them the same destination because they search once. So, we are going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you.